Well, hi. Don't you look beautiful? Are you going to the 49th floor, too?
Shh. She'll get in trouble for talking.
I'll get in trouble for talking? Okay. Shh. Well, looky here.
Beautiful.
Don't you look so pretty?
We are champagne ladies, so sending over a vodka cran, it just shows a lack of appreciation for our situation.
Sam, that tonight. Ready?
Don't let them tell you it can't. You see, they're stuck in the past. We are the future. And then I'll be back and we'll say our goodbyes.
That's crazy, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect.
That's not happening in this.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the last scene that we do.
First, I want to congratulate you all on our defeat of the Yanks at Milliken's. This is what victory looks like.
You're dismissed.
Hey, what is this?
Quiet.
Ready?
Going good.
You know what we do? We maybe we move it closer to the.
And they will soon see, they'll see it. They'll see our collective power in Congress, in state capitals, in city halls, in school boards all across this country. Yeah.
Just like a sexy Dirk chocolate, just like a 73% cacao.
73,
just like
yeah.
chef kiss.
Is he fine?
He's fine. And he's got a friend for you.
A friend.
Yes.
I don't know. I feel like I don't trust that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jack, we'll pick it up with you getting up on the car.
It was not a graceful get.
No, and it threw you out of character.
Boom.
Boom!
Boom.
Mommy, why was that man so angry?
Oh, baby.
Sorry. You want to have the horse up there? What's going on? Mark? All right, so it's near the end of her presentation. From the beginning, action.
I know.
Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
Hi. Wine list. My name is Sam. I'll be taking care of you this evening. Are you expecting a fourth?
No, just us.
Wonderful.
The concept of honoring Black women made me want to be a part of this movie. Black women from the past, the present, and the Black women who will shape the future. Women like Maxine Waters, women like my grandmother, women like my ancestors. And I think this is an important film that will speak to how the past directly influences our present and our future. I think I also was attracted to the themes of the film. You know, systemic racism, microaggressions, white supremacy. And I think, especially with the time that we're in, it's important to shed even more light on these toxic issues. The burden that Black women have to carry to deconstruct white supremacy and racism every single day doesn't get talked about enough. And I felt like this was an opportunity to shed light on what we're going through daily. When I was reading the script and thinking about Veronica and all the Veronicas that I know, because she reminds me of so many strong Black, educated pillars in the community. You know, Veronica is very community oriented. What she does is not just for herself, you know, is to uplift her community, to move Black people forward, and to help us not assimilate, but to be, you know, revolutionaries of our own life. And I think that I was drawn to that. I was drawn to just how much of a modern day superhero she was and she is. And one of the other things that's super important is how she deals with, you know, an oppressed system, a system that does not work for her. And I think Veronica wanting to dismantle those systems that were not built for her with us in mind is something that we need and something that we need to see more of. Eric and Jack are, you know, some of the best actors in the business, and I was super happy that I was going to get an opportunity to work with them. I knew that for everybody, you know, these roles were going to be heavy, and they were going to be asking a lot of ourselves, and we would have to go outside of who we are, you know, as individuals. When I met them, it was important for us to just talk. So we didn't film anything without having conversations around race, you know, around oppression, around white supremacy. it was important that we went out. You know, it was important to the directors as well that all of us had an opportunity to connect human to human to understand where we stood. And there was some really important and eye-opening conversations that stem from our talks. I was familiar with their film Against the Wall and the work that they had done with Jay-Z. So I knew, you know, that this film was super important for them to execute, and, you know, just seeing their passion for wanting to make sure that every detail was paid attention to, I really respected and appreciated that. One of the other things that was important to me is that I had Black designers when I was Veronica, you know, and she worked hard to figure out how to get, you know, local Black-owned designers to contribute earrings and skirts and dresses and jumpsuits. So that's what I love too, is that she went out of her way to make sure that we were highlighting, you know, Black designers, because this is a film speaking about Black life. The things that Antebellum deal with, the themes that this film deals with are white supremacy, microaggressions, systemic racism, and the burden that Black women carry to deconstruct white supremacy and racism every day. I think that it's even more important that we talk about these themes because of the times that we are in. We are in a fight right now. We're in a real fight. And the things in this film haven't been as global as they need to be. We're seeing people wake up for the first time and address the delusion of white supremacy. And what this film shows and what we see right now is that the past is not the past. The past is not even the past, and I think that will be made clear after you watch it. I think this film will make a lot of people uncomfortable, and I think that it should. I think that in order for us to grow and to create something new, growth requires discomfort, and everyone is feeling it in different ways. So my hope is that after folks watch this film, that it prompts them to do something about it. I think that art has a way of ministering and of getting people to have that aha, I finally get it moment. You know, sometimes it doesn't work in a speech. Sometimes politicians, they don't articulate it or make it plain or say it in the most passionate way that you have to listen. And art does that. And that's why I love being an artist, and I try to stay true to that, even if I have to go through the pain, like I'm gonna, you know, like I'm going through in this film, to come out on the other side, to showcase that on screen is just something that is remarkable and has the power to change hearts and minds everywhere. One of the other things that was so special about filming this movie is that I got to work with some of my favorite actors. And Kiersey Clemons is, to me, somebody that everybody should be talking more about. You know, her performance in here was just outstanding. And both of us had to really lean on each other, you know, between each take. Because we understood the weight, we understood the responsibility that we had to portraying our characters and our ancestors. And I just remember her, you know, looking at me and looking in those big, pretty eyes and finding my power. Yeah, finding my power. So I really love working with her.
I had responded to the material because they had created these very three-dimensional female characters, these women that were you know, equal parts brilliant and funny and cool and supportive of each other. The friendship between Dawn, Sarah, and Veronica is just like they have this really progressive female friendship that I have with my own peers, and I was so happy to see reflected in their writing because they just embody these really empowered but also grounded women. I think at that restaurant we get to see the way that these three females relate to each other, that we have this, you know, modern female friendship that's so supportive and funny, and that there's a lot of such love that exists between them. But I think there's also this, you know, a repeated microaggression that we're seeing when we enter the restaurant, and then as we're moving through the restaurant, that we keep coming up against these kind of microaggressions that are aimed at Dawn and Veronica, that I think Sarah is aware of, and yet doesn't, you know, she doesn't really know personally, it doesn't affect her as much. The producers have had, you know, such incredible films under their belts, and I think there is absolutely that sort of zeitgeist that's going on right now that we're stepping into with this film. I think we're absolutely engaging in a conversation that films like Get Out and Us and BlacKkKlansman have also been addressing. So it seems like we're working with exactly the right people to handle this sort of subject matter, and it doesn't surprise me at all that they would jump at the chance to work on this script. When I was reading the script was that I was kind of feeling like, it kept making me want to do a double take. And they've created that. They've sort of seeded something forward that's coming back at us. And so we're seeing this foreshadowing, but we don't know what's coming. And we know there's something that is coming around the corner, but they've done such a great job of kind of planting it ahead. So you're kind of catching on, but they're always just a step ahead of you. They're extremely talented storytellers, and this material is just, I think it's going to knock people's socks off. I think Gerard and Christopher have done an incredible job of turning the camera around on the audience so that we ask ourselves, what have I been informed by? What's informing me? What undercurrents might exist in my life that I'm not aware of or that I haven't looked at yet? I think it will be very powerful for all audiences to become self-reflective and look at this and think, well, what role does the history of my country play in my life currently? And is that something that I should take for granted, or is that something that I can shift and move with? And so I think that this film really gives audience members an opportunity to turn and ask themselves the questions about the world in which they exist.
Just in the first 3 pages, I knew I had to do this, and I knew I had to be there when they're shooting this because of how much attention and time and space and really power they gave to imagery in the script alone. I knew I had to be here to see the way they would shoot that. And of course, the story is incredible and shocking and pulls you in, you know, multiple directions in such an incredible way, in such an entertaining way, in such a sad way. You feel almost too many things at one time. And just, you know, and I tend to read scripts as the audience, not as the player. And the journey I went on sort of mentally and spiritually and physically, really, while reading, I knew I had to be a part of it. I think the happiest part of my meeting with them was when Gerard, he held my shoulders and he said, I really, really want you to, he's like, this is just, the words for Dawn are just what they are, but you and what you will bring to it is what only you can bring to it. So don't be afraid to play. Don't be afraid to go off script. Don't be afraid to turn Dawn into exactly who you see her to be. And that was really all I needed. I was gonna do that anyway because that's just how I am. But having the license and the freedom to take this character that they wrote, that they created, and to sort of adopt her and raise her like she was my own. That is all the I needed that. I needed that license. I needed that go ahead, and that's what I got from them. And I hope that I took what they created and gave them something that they couldn't create back. Diversity behind the camera, and in every single department. Every single department means that we get to tell more of our stories, and stories that you don't know even existed. There are so many things that people don't know about because they're not looking, or because those people who are knowledgeable or have lived that life that's super interesting, they don't have the mic. They don't have the mic and they don't have the camera. And so I know certainly as a director, I try my best to diversify every single department. It's a fantasy thriller, sure, but it's actually not very far away from the country we actually live in. And I will never be tired of slave dramas. I will never be tired of that, because it's a part of my history as a Black woman. It's also a part of my history as an American. It's part of my history as someone who was raised by a Black woman from the South. It's also a part of my history as someone who was raised by a Black man from Africa. It is my history on all fronts and all parts of myself, and I don't want anyone to forget it ever happened. I'm such a huge fan of Janelle as an artist. I'm a fan of her as a person, but also as an artist. I think what she does with her music is incredible. I think what she does with her image is incredible and special and 100% her. So I look up to her as an artist, and sitting next to Lily and seeing her artistry and getting to know it and getting to witness her artistry. And finally, just a smaller piece of me knowing that I'm also an artist. It's sort of, I look at us like, it just like Lily's a Picasso and Janelle is a Monet, and because it's her last name, and maybe I'm the Mona Lisa or whatever. And it really, really is nice to be around other people who really, really believe in themselves and believe in their words and believe in their artistry, and it feeds me.
I think it's always an important story to be told, because the way that we're talking about the plantation that we're shooting on being preserved and to keep the history alive, that's another way that we're doing that with making this movie. There are so many stories that have been passed down through literature, through film, and so we're just kind of adding to that library of that and connecting it in modern day language, so that people can reflect on what's happening now in society and how there's a trickle-down effect and what we can do to continue to move forward and make even bigger change more than what's already been done, because we do still have a long ways to go.
It really kind of startled me, the script. I think Christopher and Gerard just created something that I had never read before, but as an audience member I had been kind of hungry for a long time. So it was a clear yes in my mind. So it's always an awkward, meeting with directors when you kind of try to determine how much hunger you should put on the table, sort of like, should I really tell them how much I really want to do this, or are we both going to play it cool? But luckily it was all just kind of authentic love and, good questioning. So I'm glad that they said yes. I think I was most excited about working with Janelle, just because she was the person that was sort of on the script before anyone else was cast. And I've been just a big fan and respecter of her work. I think she's an incredible poet. I think she's an incredible songwriter. And the film work that she's amassing is authentic and beautiful. And And it's been really rare and a gift to get to watch her sort of move into this space of leading actress, sort of, you know, guiding the set and taking up her space. I think that she is such an advocate to her own process. That's a really empowering thing to witness, particularly as a woman. I feel like the producers on this film are beyond courageous, and you can tell not only in their choice in doing this film, but in their history of productions in the past. I think that doors have been opened recently for narratives that no one has seen before, and it's about inclusion and understanding and sort of historical, not accuracy, but amends, you know? There's a certain amount of stuff that we haven't really talked about and that we're still not really dealing with. And I think that it takes an extremely courageous and brave storyteller to lead the charge in these wide open windows that we have now, you know, to start painting in. I think what's interesting about this for me, as I was witnessing just as an audience reading the script, is that it doesn't force you to confront things that are hard about maybe things you don't agree about in society, like racism or inequality, or even just like the sort of like the sort of, you know, self-hate and how it's demonstrated and reiterated again and again and again through all of these different social understandings. It's what it brings out in you. You know, what makes you feel uncomfortable about watching this film? You know, what is a glory moment for you? Where is there when you're cheering someone on? You know, all of these things are going to be really interesting, individual experiences. The reason why this story needs to be told now is because we're literally living in a crumbling society of a paradigm that is shifting. And as we shift out of separatism and into a more holistic understanding of the universe, then, you know, it's our job. It's our number one job as storytellers to start filling those holes and you know, being as brave and courageous as we can.
Gerard is the feisty, loud, just, you know, he's in there when he gets excited, he starts, you know, gets really animated. I love that. And Chris is just more the reserved and kind of like chimes in. But when I sat with them, they were basically just, you know, giving me their vision about, you know, trying to make a statement in today's society. And, you know, because they got their finger on the pulse of what's happening right now, you know, in the country. They just really felt that this project was something that was needed, and, you know, and because they're addressing things that are currently happening, it's right on the money. I play the character Eli / Tarasai. He is, you know, when we first meet him, we find him on the plantation. Because we're playing with the, you know, the illusion of time. We don't know how long he's been around, you know. Is it a couple of months? Is it a couple of years? But when he meets Veronica, he understands that, you know, she's a notable figure in terms of, you know, the advancements of Black social consciousness and just Black liberation. And I think when he sees Veronica, he sees a way out of this situation. And so he will do everything and anything he can to help her and help himself get out of a very, very dire situation. I think anytime there is there's a fight for justice, until the thing that people are fighting for comes to pass, there's always going to be room for stories like this. I know people might say, oh, we've seen it all before. It's like, well, if we've seen it, then why are we still having these issues? If there are no issues, then there won't be any need for these kind of stories. But if you've got amnesia, then we need to consistently remind you and put it in front of you so that at some point we can come to a place where we can resolve our differences and move forward in the way that we have built this nation to be and how the rest of the world sees us. So I think it's absolutely important and necessary that we tell the story until we get or we see the change we want to see. I think just from the inception of just me being African and, you know, to understand the history of slavery and, you know, its origins and where it started and, you know, from the shores of West Africa and to find themselves here, you know, on these plantations. For me, it's kind of like full circle in the reverse. Like I am African and I'm here in America and as Tongai, but as Eli the character, I'm working on a plantation as a male who's been enslaved. And for me, just being on a plantation, number one, is surreal, but it makes history that much richer. And the story of, you know, the forefathers that much more sacred. And you begin to appreciate the gravity of what transpired and who these men and women were, the conditions that they lived in, what they had to endure, and yet through all of that still had some resolute hope that all was going to be well. I found that to be the last puzzle that I needed to complete my character. Now, what can I say? You know, she's a superstar. You know, if she's not that, she's one in the making, that's for sure. I mean, it's been really great to see just how passionate she is about this project, about the story, and just, I think with everybody, to see the emancipation of people of color, you know, particularly black, but also brown, but the mentality of liberation, and to see us on equal footing with everybody else in the country. It's been magic to behold, and to see her zest and desire, you know, to be a part of a story, to be a cog in this massive wheel, to say, hey, I've played my part. So, you know, I just love how she's been able to delve into this fearlessly, you know, and just give us a sublime performance. I'm excited for them, you know, them being first-time directors. I think it's wonderful how they've been able to navigate, because I think, number one, the enthusiasm has definitely permeated onto the entire set. You know, Gerard, you know, getting hyper excited while the film is still rolling, and it's like we haven't cut. You can't get too excited yet, you know. But to see that, you know, just gives us that comfortability to know that, okay, you know what, we're on the right track, and you know how, you know, Chris is, you know, very much hands-on, you know, like, you know, he's kind of like the technical guy. Chris is the hype man, you know. But to see the way that they work, it's almost like they got one brain, you know, but they know exactly what they want, and they get that.
I actually think I read it that within an hour. When I was halfway through it, I was like, no matter what, I'm getting on the phone with these guys, because the script was already of that caliber. It was that high. I was like, okay, this is something I want to at least go further with. And by the time I got to the end of it, I said, yeah, I haven't read anything like this before. And then the next day, I got on the phone with Gerard, and we started talking. And I'd probably say within the first 5 minutes of that conversation, I think we both knew that I was going to be playing Jasper. It was that important. My biggest fear about taking on Jasper is I found it very hard to relate to him, or at least find the heart. And then my way in with Jasper, I said my hatred for him, for that person, for that kind of man, was how he feels about everybody else. So however much I hated him, I used that to spur his hatred through the character to other people. I remember having a conversation with my Uncle Danny once, and we were discussing what role we wouldn't take. And I had a couple of things that I said, I just don't think I could do it. And then my uncle said to me, but you're an artist. And I said, yeah, well, I like to think I am, or I try to be. He was like, well, then nothing should be off book. If the art is there, if you're reading something and you're saying it's important and you believe it is a piece of art, which when I read the script I felt it was, you shouldn't shy away from it. You need to go further. You need to take it. You know, that's the moment where you take risks. And you should be scared. And it was scary, and it has been scary every single day. From my first read, I had a visceral reaction to it, and I was like, wow. And I wouldn't have felt confident with anyone else directing their script because it was so theirs. And they came to it with the film so fully formed, how they want it to look, how these characters want to be.
Antebellum, for us, we always knew from the moment we put pen to paper, so to speak, that ultimately this was going to be a movie that we would direct, that we would produce, that we would spearhead and guide in every detail of making the movie from script to screen.
We felt a huge responsibility to the cast. They put a lot of trust in us. These characters are, you know, they're strong characters. It can be divisive, and we wanted to make sure that they understood that we knew that they were putting a lot of trust in us, and we felt a huge responsibility to them throughout, from pre-production all the way through post, to make sure that we delivered on what we promised.
Obviously, Janelle actually was, I think, possessed by the ancestors. You know, when you see her in this role, the performance is breathtaking. It's extraordinary. It's so authentic because she was deeply committed to everything, the rigor that the role required. And so again, that was about, hopefully, you know, us creating a safe space for the artist to be able to take on the difficulty of these characters in a way that felt authentic and real.
To kind of expand on the conceit of the film a little more, what we wanted to do was kind of put a modern context for people around the horrors of slavery and allow people to view it through a modern lens, so it's easier to sympathize and understand what happened. I mean, in the American school system, Black history begins at slavery. There's nothing before. And so this film kind of allows you to understand what that would be like to be plucked from your family, your your job, your entire world environment, and put into this horror, and how horrific that was, and how long-lasting the effects. Janelle was able to communicate so much without saying a word. There's so much happening just in her eyes, and the stare and what you see when you look at her face. You feel so much, and she doesn't even have to say a word. And that really is Eden's character. She is keeping everything at bay because she has to for her survival. We kind of leaned into the horror aspects just because inherently this feels like this is a horror film. It's horrific.
But I mean, also, I think we looked at it when we realized that horror was the absolute only way to go with Antebellum, is when we started thinking about what it would feel like to be Black and dropped off in the antebellum South and be modern and to be unaware of what was going on. That is complete and unmitigated horror. And so, you know, for us, that felt organic. It felt absolutely like the direction we wanted and needed to take for the movie. Christopher and I, we believe that our responsibility as responsible stewards of this art is to catalyze a national dialogue around a whole host of issues, not the least of which is race in America. And when we made the film, we had every intention that we were going to achieve that end goal of having those conversations. But now, in this racial reckoning that feels unique to any other time that we've had in our history in this country, Antebellum feels ordained in a way, destined for this moment, that it was made for this moment. Black women are the quintessential hero of this country. And it has not been depicted. We've not seen it on screen in the way that it deserves. And it should not be novelty. It should be commonplace. And so, you know, it's unfortunate in the year 2020 that, you know, a Black heroine leading a movie is in some way, you know, provocative and news-making or newsworthy. But given the fact that it is, we are incredibly proud that we are associated with a film and with a performance in a Black female lead that is worthy of a big conversation. Veronica is this incredibly well-read, well-traveled, educated Black woman, a mother, a wife, and she navigates life as a Black woman with such beauty and such grace. And I think for me personally, she reminded me so much of my mother or my sister who attended Spelman, or a lot of the Black women. Christopher and I are surrounded by Black women in our lives because we have a mixed family, so to speak. So we're familiar with these women, and we know them well. And we don't see them regularly portrayed on the silver screen in the way that we experience these women. So it was important to us that we ground Veronica, the character, in someone that we actually know and are familiar with. Sean and Ray couldn't have been more supportive, and they were, I think, as determined as we were to see our vision on the screen as we were. And that speaks volumes about who they are as producers, and why we've chosen to work with them again, you know,
we're, you know,
On the next project.
On the next project, we're working with them again. So, you know, Sean and Ray are great guys. They are super funny, and they have such a dry wit, both of them collectively. I think that their appreciation for the Black experience and wanting to amplify those issues for a broader audience, that's really important to them.
FuturePreviews.com. Whoa! Go behind the scenes of movies. Subscribe to FutureFlix YouTube channel.